Hey y'all, welcome back to the Real Deal Reaction Channel. Now we about to watch the trial, react to the trial of Ford. Austin Ford is accused of killing 18-year-old Tory Lane, who was his best friend at one time, okay? He was arrested nearly 9 months after her death and is accused of murdering her. Now, I'm just going to say allegedly hiding and burning her cards and stuff, put you in the mind or Crystal Anderson case. Her body was found on July the 28th, 2021, under a tree in Yellow River Park in Gwinnett County. Okay, that's what now what we're gonna do today is in a few minutes we're about to watch the day one trial. So what I'm gonna do is let me edit and put day one. Okay, we're gonna put day one right here. This is day one trial for her. Okay, we've been following that one now. We've been following that last, but now we got to keep up with the trial now, y'all. We followed the case. Now we got to follow the trial, okay? Okay, trial, okay, man, trial one, okay. I can hold on, y'all. 1 second. Let me move my one to right here. Trial one. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's share the screen with y'all so we can watch the trial. I know y'all remember this. It's gonna be good. This is the open statement, y'all.
Walking in his wife that morning in Yellow River Park, and he saw what he believed to be a motionless woman lying under a tree. He did not touch the young woman, but he did approach to see exactly what was going on. She did not appear to be breathing, and he called police. Officers with the Gwinnett County Police arrived, Casey Smith and Officer Rennie. Officer Casey Smith checked the young woman's pulse and noted that she was cold and she did not have a pulse. The scene was roped off. Officers conducted a search for any evidence that led them to know why this young woman had come to be in the park with a gunshot wound to the side of her head. Officers didn't find a gun. They didn't find the means by which she'd gotten there. All they found were two shell casings, one relatively close to the body and one further away. They were both Aguila shells, and we'll later find out that they were probably fired by the same gun, or at least the same make of gun. And all we have now is a nameless young woman with a gunshot wound to the head lying in Yellow River Park. Photos were taken of the scene. The scene was processed as crime scenes are. Photos were taken of the young woman's tattoos. And ultimately that was how her family was able to identify her, was by photos of her tattoos. While this process was taking place, Dr. Carol Terry with the Gwinnett County Medical Examiner's Office performed an autopsy on July 29th of 2021. She determined that the wound path of the gunshot, the single gunshot to the head of this young woman, was left to right with no frontward, backward, or upward, downward desiccation or deviation. Meaning, in short, that it entered the side of her head and literally went straight across. Dr. Terry will tell you that that shot severed this young woman's brainstem, meaning that autonomic function ceased at that moment. Once the brainstem is severed, that is it. That injury was catastrophic, and that she simply would not have been able to move as soon as that bullet passed through her brainstem. Where you are when your brainstem is severed is just where you are. She was able to determine that the muzzle of the gun was some 10 to 12 inches away from the young woman's head. Dr. Terry will testify and tell you that in her years as a medical examiner, both for Fulton and Gwinnett counties, that she has seen a number of suicides, and a large number of them where a firearm is used are very close or press contact wounds. And she'll explain how she can tell the difference between when someone puts a gun to their head and when someone is shot with a gun away from their head. At the time, on July 29th of 2021, Dr. Terry determined that the cause of death was the gunshot wound to the head, but that the manner of death was undetermined. There is a good deal of information that Dr. Terry simply did not have at the time that she was making that ruling. What she did determine is that the young woman, who was Tory Lang, Tory's head was exactly where it was when she was shot, meaning that based on Dr. Terry's observations and through her knowledge, training, and experience, she can tell that Tory Lang lay exactly where she was shot, and that she did not move based on her observations. Tory is identified that same day on the 29th. Her family having recognized her tattoos, which had been put out to the public by now Sergeant David Smith. She was last seen leaving the house on the 27th without her phone. Tory left the house without her phone, as teenagers are not often wont to do, because her mother was switching to family service and she needed the phone to port the number over to the new service. So Tory left without her phone on the 27th. That was the last time that her parents saw her. While she was missing, her parents, Teresa and Tory, called her friends. They drove around to her typical haunts, the places where they knew her to be, where they expected her to be, where they hoped to find their daughter alive. Among the friends that they called was this defendant, Austin Fulton. This defendant probably would have described himself while Tory was alive, and Tory might have described him as her best friend, a person who she confided in. They talked all the time, daily and frequently. One thing that the defendant never said to Teresa or Tory, and yes, Tory father is Torrey, Tory daughter is Tori, just so there's no confusion there. But one thing that the defendant never told Teresa and Tory was that their daughter lay dead in yellow car. He never told them anything about her whereabouts, acted as if he didn't know, acted as if he was looking for her himself. And Teresa will tell you about what contact she had with the defendant after their daughter, before their daughter was found and after their daughter was found dead. Tory was reported missing to the DeKalb Police Department on the 28th. Teresa also noticed that her Sig Sauer P365, which is a small semi-automatic subcompact handgun that she normally kept by her bedstand, was missing. She also reported that missing to the DeKalb Police Department. In the days following Tory's discovery, Detective, now Sergeant Smith, spoke with this defendant by telephone. Told Detective Smith that he was looking for Tory all day on the 27th, trying to get his wallet back. He told Sergeant Smith that Tory asked him to kill her. That she had a gun in the car, and he saw it when he saw the sights of the gun between the seats of her Nissan Versa, a blue Nissan Versa that belonged to her grandmother, Tanya Lane. He told Detective Smith that he refused, and his report was that Tory told him that she would just look for someone else. The defendant, named other people he thought might hurt Tory for money. And said that he was home the rest of the night. That is, that's what he told him. Detective Smith noticed that there was a ring camera located at apartment 1302 across the hall from where the defendant lived. He contacted Ms. Mary Perkins, who was the resident of that apartment at the time, and asked her for whatever video may have been taken between certain hours on her ring cam on July 27th of 2021. What we see is the defendant and Tory walking away from his apartment together around 10:40 p.m. They were having a conversation. And it sounds like the defendant says, "You're scaring me." Tory's response was, "What are you scared of?" Then they go off camera. That's the first lie that Austin Ford was calling. That he was home the night of the 27th, the night Tory was killed, the night he killed Tory. 2 hours later, he's seen on the same ring cam returning back to his apartment. Leaving again. And returns at 1:41 a.m. And at some point in this, he changes clothes. The two shell casings at the scene were, at this point, determined to have come from the same gun and were consistent with markings made by a Sig Sauer P365. On August 1st of 2021, Tory's Nissan Versa is located. It is found in an nature preserve in DeKalb County, burned to the frame. There is little left of the car, except for the frame, and everything else is essentially ash. In September of 2021, Sergeant Smith was promoted to the rank of sergeant, and in accordance with Gwinnett County policy at the police department, he was transferred out to another unit. It's not uncommon, it's not unusual, it's just kind of how police work. The case was reassigned to Detective Angela Carter. In October of 2021, Detective Carter talks to this defendant by phone. He details he says, to Detective Carter, he talks about how Tory clashed with her mother. He added that she had showed up unexpectedly at his house, and that she came by his house twice. This was not something that he had previously told Sergeant Smith. Told Detective Carter that He saw her the third time. She said she talked about wanting to not be here anymore, and that she spoke of suicide often. Ultimately, what he told Detective Carter at that point was that Tory drove away herself, and that he went to go buy weed. So at this point, your best friend, who you know has a gun, who you say is talking about not wanting to be here and talking about suicide, your response is to let her drive away and go buy some weed. But the fact is, that's still a lie, because she didn't drive away by herself. We will see on the ring cam video, they left together. Detective Carter does a search warrant for cell phone records and Gmail records. That doesn't give what sometimes we think a cell phone record will give, which means my cell phone, if it were in my pocket, I don't think over there, will not show me pacing around this courtroom. The location shown by cell phone is not that accurate. But what Detective Carter was able to see is what tower that cell phone was hitting, and what's called an azimuth, which points to where it was, what direction from the tower it was. It also shows what his calls were in the 11 o'clock hour, what calls came and were not answered, and what calls were made. During the 11 o'clock hour, there was a period where the same number called the defendant 5 times. It wasn't answered, and the phone wasn't pinging off the tower. All that is before 11:47 p.m., which we will find out from Dr. Terry is around the time, based on her observations, her training, her knowledge, her experience as a medical examiner for a number of years, that Tory expired in the 11 o'clock hour on July 27th. We see then a series of phone calls to the number that had called 5 times unanswered. 3 phone calls are made to that number. In January of 2022, Detective Carter contacts the defendant again, and it's best described as that he's being cagey. He doesn't meet with her, kind of puts her off, and generally doesn't add anything. Detective Carter receives the Gmail records and location history, because frankly, Google tells on you. His location history puts him at North Bashan Road and Aniston Road, which is near Yellow River Park, at 11:05 p.m. The time frame between when he was last seen and the time where he was is simply too short for him to have walked. As far as anyone knows, the defendant didn't have a car and frankly relied on Tory to take him from place to place from time to time. But where we know he was from the ring cam video, and where we know his cell phone was at 11:05 p.m., he could not have walked that distance in that time. In March, on the 29th of 2022, Detective Carter interviews the defendant in person. He is confronted with the knowledge about his lies, of his whereabouts and time frame. And ultimately, he admits that he was in the park with Tory. He tells Detective Carter that while standing and holding the gun, she simply suddenly raised it to her head, shot herself, and fell. He says that he didn't touch anything, he didn't touch anyone, and he didn't touch her body, but admits that he took the gun and he left it in her car. Now, let's address really briefly what Dr. Terry's testimony is going to be. Her testimony is going to be that the young woman who was lying on her back in the park with her braids splayed out behind her head, I can't demonstrate that because I have no hair, but with her braids splayed out behind her back, indicated to Dr. Terry that she had in fact laid down there on her own. There was no indication from the scene that she had been moved or that she moved herself. It appears from Dr. Terry's observations that she was in that position when she was shot, which is simply not what the defendant just told Detective Carter. Claimed that because he was scared, he took the gun, threw it in a pond somewhere in DeKalb County, and he took her car and gave it to someone, but doesn't know how it came to be in a nature preserve or in the spring. So let's revisit Dr. Terry's ruling that the manner of death was undetermined and look at what Dr. Terry didn't know at the time she made that determination. She didn't know who Austin Ford was. She didn't know about Austin Ford's efforts to cover up and conceal Tory Lange's death, and to cover up and conceal his involvement in Tory Lange's death. What you'll learn is that it borders on impossible for a person to shoot themselves in the manner in which Tory was shot with their own hand. And I say borders on impossible because it's not completely impossible. The chances of it happening are infinitesimal. The chances of Tory dying the way the defendant claims are zero. Dr. Terry didn't see the ring video with the defendant and Tory together. Taken all together, those things leave no reasonable doubt that this defendant had a hand in Tory's death. Now, I'll tell you that what's not clear and what comes primarily from the defendant's mouth is that this was done at Tory's request, that this was essentially a suicide. Because we don't know everything, because we can't know everything, there is no way to know whether or not she changed her mind at the last second. Whether or not, if in fact she was complicit in her own death, whether or not she changed her mind. All we actually know is that she laid down in that spot in Yellow River Park on her own. And the truth is, even if this was done at Tory's request, this defendant is authorized by no law in the state of Georgia to hold a 6-hour P365 10 to 12 inches from her head and pull the trigger, severing her brainstem and ending her life. Even if Tory was complicit, even if this was done at her request, the state will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this is a murder. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the word murder. It is the title of the statute under which this defendant is charged. Count 1 is felony murder. When you, in the commission of a felony, cause the death of another human being, you commit the offense of murder. The term murder, used colloquially in the way we use it amongst ourselves, tends to have a more nefarious and malicious tone to it. Where it is someone seeking to cause harm to someone because of anger or rage, seeking profit. But that's not part of the law in the state of Georgia. The way the state of Georgia in this statute uses that term, a murder is simply the unlawful killing of another human being during the commission of a felony. If you put your hand on a 6-hour P365 and hold it 10 to 12 inches from your best friend's head, even if you pull the trigger yourself or you help her pull the trigger, you are committing the offense of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon because you are pointing a firearm, which is a deadly weapon, at another human being. And if you cause the death of that person in doing that, you commit the offense of murder. So, because words are important. Words are the basis of communication. Communication is more than me simply spewing words out to you and you receiving. It's important that we understand the same definition for each word that we use. When the state, in this case, is using the term murder, what it means is the unlawful killing of Tory Lang. I can't tell you that there is no evidence that there is any malice in the heart of the defendant at the time he pulls that trigger. But I can tell you that based on his actions, based on his cover-up, based on his lies, he was definitely involved in pulling that trigger. He was definitely part of the plan, or a plan, to end Tory's life. Tory did not do this alone. There will be testimony that there was blood transfer on Tory's thigh, and what that blood transfer means. Dr. Terry will tell you that after Tory was shot, Tory wasn't going anywhere. That could only have been done by another person. It seems absurd to say so, but Tory didn't move that firearm from the scene of her death. It seems absurd to say so, but Tory didn't take her car away from the scene of her death and cause it to be burned in a nature preserve in DeKalb County. Tory wasn't alone. Information about this and the order in which things come at you from the stand might be a little out of order. Simply the way things happen simultaneously with the schedule, information may not come at you in chronological order. But I do ask that you keep your minds open, you listen carefully to what each witness has to say, and you wait until the evidence is concluded to put it all together. And what you'll find is that when I return to ask you to find this defendant guilty of every count in this indictment, that the evidence will show exactly that beyond a reasonable doubt.
Thank you. The opening on behalf of the state. Will we have an opening on behalf of the defense?
Yes, Judge.
All right, please proceed.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just say this because I have to sort of focus when things become weird. Everything about the case is weird. The evidence is weird. The indictment is weird. The prosecutor telling you that he intends to impeach Dr. Terry, who wrote manner of death undetermined. The medical examiners already submitted a report within 24 hours of the death saying, I can't tell if it's a suicide or homicide. So the prosecutor getting up here saying, well, she can't tell, but she really can tell. That's weird to me. My client's response and reaction to the suicide there in Yellow River Park is totally weird. The whole case is just weird. Everything about the case is weird to me. So I'm going to have to really use a lot of energy to focus because I really don't do weird. being a lawyer and following facts. Weird and I really don't go together. So we have to go to the indictment. My client is pled not guilty to each and every count in the indictment. Count 1 is felony murder. My client is charged with felony murder for an aggravated assault saying he shot. He shot. That's what it says in count 1. We move to count 2, which is the aggravated assault, which is the felony underlying the felony murder, and it reads, by pointing said firearm. It doesn't matter how long you point a firearm, you can't cause any felony murder by pointing. But then the prosecutor just explained it to me. Count 1 is felony murder shooting, but if you don't like that he shot, when Tory laid down, my client may have helped Tory point the gun at herself when she pulled the trigger. What? So count 2, words matter. Words matter. So count 2 reads that he committed an aggravated assault by pointing a firearm. So she shot herself, but he helped steer the gun after she laid down. I don't think Dr. Terry's going to say that, but let's assume for a moment Dr. Terry said that she laid down and shot herself. Then count 3 is not guilty because it reads causes the death as a result of a sudden, violent, or irresistible passion resulting from serious provocation. Tory laid down and he helped point the gun at her. So there's no voluntary manslaughter. That's when you come home and your wife is in bed or your husband's in bed with somebody else and you said, I'll fix you, and you pull the gun and start firing. He just told you she laid down and my client either shot her or helped steer the gun to shoot her. So she can't provoke. So what's the provocation there? There will be absolutely no evidence that these two very good friends at any point in time ever had any argument that would amount to any of the language in count 3. The whole thing is weird. There's no text messages, there's no voicemail, there's no anything that would indicate that my client was angry at her or she was angry at him. They were friends. When you see her walk up on the Ring camera to his door before she shoots herself, when they walk out, when he walks back, there's no indication that they at any time were mad or had a fight. There's nobody that heard any yelling before the gunshot. You're not going to hear anything about that. That's just pie in the sky foolishness to try to explain the weirdness. You're never going to be able to explain weird. That's why I picked the law rather than a different field, because I can't stand weird. So we get to counts 4 and 5. Counts 4 and 5 are possession of a firearm. The prosecutor's already told you there's no evidence that there's 2 firearms, and the prosecutor believes that the 2 shell casings that were found belong to the same gun, and they think it belongs to Tory's mother's gun. So when you see that my client is charged in count 6 with taking the gun, he means taking the gun from the scene. My client was never at Tory's house stealing any gun. Tory came to the park with her mother's gun. So count six, unlawfully taking a gun is taking the gun that Tory used to shoot herself away from the scene. That's what that is. That's what they believe the gun is. Tory's mother's gun. I don't know that they know that, but we all know that there's no gun there. 2 rounds. We think they're the same. We think it's Tory's mother's gun that only Tory had access to because my client not charged with burglary because he didn't break in anybody's house and he didn't sneak in anybody's bedroom and take any gun when he was at Tory's house. That never happened. So the theft is removing the gun from the scene. Count 7 is unlawfully left with the car. 6 and 7 are basically just enhancement of count 8. Tampering with evidence. And the only reason they know that my client, you can just say guilty of count 8 now. You can write down guilty of count 8. The only reason they know that is because my client told them that. That's the only thing they know in the case. They know she's dead. They know she has a gunshot wound to the head, and they know that he was there because he told the police, "I was there. She shot herself, and I took the gun and the car and left." He doesn't even say he burnt up the car. The car is burnt up some 1.5 miles or 2 miles away as the crow flies. They don't even know when the car was burnt up. The whole thing is weird. Why didn't he call the police after she shot herself? Why didn't he stay there? Well, he says he was nervous. He says he was nervous. Well, do you believe he was nervous? I'm just not that guy. I personally don't get nervous when I see the police. I understand other people get nervous. As soon as the blue lights come on the highway, I know it's for me because I'm a speeder and I pull right over. I don't have a problem. But he explains to the police, listen, the optics didn't look good. I'm a black man. She's black, yes, but she's light skinned. I'm dark skinned. The optics just doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good. So, no, this is what I did. He explains it to the police. So the whole thing is weird. So we have to try to go through the actual facts. Opening statement is where we're supposed to outline for you the evidence that you think that we expected you to see during the course of the trial. What you're going to see is you're going to see a ring camera, and you're going to see a ring camera that belongs to somebody who may or may not be here. I won't have a whole bunch of questions for the people with the ring camera. Well, Mr. Lewis, you said it was ring, but it was really ghost. Listen, let's stop playing games. Whatever surveillance you see, I'm going to call it ring. I don't care if it's called ghost or vivid or whatever it is. Let's not get bogged down in foolishness. Someone has a surveillance camera, and that camera is going to catch Tory coming over to my client's apartment about 10:30 at night on July 27, 2021. It's going to have my client coming back to his apartment without Tory somewhere around 12:30 in the morning on July 28, 2021. So although the indictment says July 27, 2021, you're never going to hear me stand up here and say, hey, it says July 27th, but they can't prove that that's foolishness. Somebody's dead, and we need to get at it. July 27, 2021, into the morning of July 28, 2021, Tory was shot. Her body is located at about 6:35 a.m. by a passerby, and we know that because they call 911, and 911 responds on July 28th at 6:30 in the morning. The ME does an autopsy. There's one bullet in Tory, 2 rounds. I don't know where the second bullet is. I don't know if there was a second bullet fired there or if there was just an extra casing. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. That's weird, but that's 2 rounds. She struck 1 time, and the medical examiner, Dr. Terry, who will tell you she's done like 6,000 autopsies. She's not brand new. Nobody here is new. Nobody here. Well, okay, maybe Fallon Stimson is new. Prosecutor doesn't look new. All his hair is gone. All my hair is gone. And Dr. Terry's going to tell you she's got 6,000 autopsies. Nobody's new. And she's going to tell you, based on her expertise, she cannot tell if it's a suicide or a homicide. She doesn't know Austin Ford, but she's going to tell you science cannot tell me if it was a suicide or a homicide. She's not going to tell you science tells me it's 10% suicide and 90% homicide. Please do not wait for that. Dr. Terry is a person after my own heart. She doesn't suffer fools lightly. And if you say something foolish like undetermined means, you're going to hear it from Dr. Terry. She does not suffer fools lightly. With 6,000 autopsies, she's going to tell you she cannot determine if it's a homicide or a suicide. That's the end of that with Dr. Terry. The vehicle is found about 4 days after the body is found, burnt up. We don't know who burnt it up. We don't even know when it was burnt up. When the vehicle is found, it's not burning. So we know it doesn't get burned within 2 hours of the discovery because I don't think it's warm to the touch. I think it's sort of just burnt out, and they find the shell of a vehicle. And we can look at as many photos as you want. In the indictment, is my client charged with burning up a vehicle? No, because they don't know that he burnt up a vehicle. The whole theft of vehicle and theft of firearm, that's just all a big distraction. He moved the vehicle and he moved the firearm. I don't know what the conversation was between him and his best friend. Pretend that it's not a suicide. I don't want my family to know it's a suicide. I don't know what the conversation was. He doesn't get that far into the conversation with the detectives when they speak to him. And the detectives speak to my client on March 29, 2022, 8 months later. They have an actual face-to-face conversation. Do I think my client is dodging the law enforcement in between the time of the shooting and the time that they speak to him? Absolutely. I absolutely believe he's dodging the police. dodging law enforcement. The same way people who know they're doing 95 in a 55 say, why'd you pull? You know why I pulled you over? I don't know why you pulled me over. Really, dude? Really? You don't know why we pulled you over? I don't know why you pulled me over, officer. And they sit down and they talk to him, and he says, listen, I was there at Yellow River, and my friend killed herself. And I removed the gun, and I removed the car. And that's how they know that he removed the gun and he removed the car, because he told her. 2 weeks after the conversation, which is 8 months after the actual body is discovered and the autopsy is done, 2 weeks after they speak to Austin Ford, the lead investigator takes a warrant for felony murder. They don't have any more information after they speak to Austin Ford than they had after Dr. Terry presented her report. Nothing to distinguish suicide from homicide, nothing. And so as you sit here and you listen to this evidence over the next 3.5 days, maybe to you by Friday, it may not be to you as a jury for you to deliberate till Monday. As you sit here and you listen to this evidence, the evidence needs to answer 3 questions. Question number 1, what happened? I'm not really even used to that. Look, normally when I come to court and my client is charged with something, I know what happened. They say it's a burglary and something got burglarized. Somebody got shot. Somebody says they got raped. I understand what happened. I don't even know what happened here. I don't even know what happened. The prosecutor giving you 3 theories. He could have shot her. He could have helped her steer the gun. Shot her. He could have just watched her shoot herself. That was all of what I did and done nothing. Well, which is it? Now, I'm going to let you decide. So first thing you have to decide on the evidence that you see, first thing you have to decide is what happened. Was it a suicide or a homicide? Did Tory kill herself or did Austin Ford kill her? Because you're not pointing in any other directions with any other suspect. First question that the evidence needs to answer is what happened. Then the second question is who was present? Who was present? If Austin Ford doesn't tell you he's present, there's no evidence that he's ultimately present. And you're going to hear from him through his recording. I don't know if he's going to testify or not. He has a right to testify. He has a right not to testify. The judge is going to tell you that. But it's clear the gun was removed from the park and her vehicle was removed from the park. And the evidence shows that she was shot at the park. I don't know that the evidence is going to show if she was standing up, on her knees, laying down, head turned. I'm not willing to go that far. Maybe you think the evidence is going to show that, or maybe the prosecutors lived with the evidence long enough that he can make that inference. I'm just comfortable saying she was shot at the park versus shot someplace else and brought to the park. But you're going to have to determine who was present in the park when the gun and or the vehicle was removed. The evidence is going to have to ultimately tell you that information. And then I can tell you, the evidence is going to be clear that Austin Ford is lying. Why is Austin Ford lying? I've been doing enough jury trials that I trust that juries aren't going to be finding people guilty of felony murder because they lying to the police. I don't know why he told the police what he did. I don't know why he told the police he was there. I don't know why he told the police beforehand that he wasn't there. I don't know. But you will get to review all of his statements. He's dodging the police. So the first 3 calls on the phone, you can just put down dodger. He's dodging the police. When they catch up with him, he's already in custody. They read him his rights, and he gives a voluntary statement. He voluntarily gives a statement, and he explains ultimately what happened. He doesn't have Dr. Terry's report at that time. Austin Ford doesn't have Dr. Terry's report saying that it is potentially a suicide. He doesn't say, oh, we went to the park and there was a third figure that came up and shot me, shot her and said that they were going to shoot me, or shot her and then shot at me. That explains the second round. No, he's not doing that. He's not doing that. Dr. Terry says it's undetermined suicide homicide. He then tells the detective 8 months after that autopsy, which he's never seen, it was a suicide. How in the world did he get that right? So he explains that ultimately to the police. Why'd you take the gun and throw it in the water? Why'd you move the car anyplace else? That's all weird. That's just weird. And I think that's what the prosecutor's hoping. He's hoping that you will convict Austin Ford on the weirdness of this whole case. Everything is weird. So I'm going to use half of my energy not to be weird as the case is weird. I'm going to try to stay focused on the evidence so that it comes to you so that you can use your cognitive abilities in evaluating the evidence and not fall into the abyss of this is just weird. It's all weird. At the end, you're going to see there's no way you can find him guilty of everything, because in order to find him guilty of everything, you got to find him guilty of multiple theories. You got to find that he shot and he helped Tory by helping her by pointing, which is the felony murder, and he had to be mad when she laid down for some reason. So that's impossible. It's impossible for you to find him guilty of all the charges. And what you're going to see through the weirdness of the case is that the state hasn't proven anything to you, which is why the only verdict in the case is going to be not guilty on all the charges. Thank you very much, Judge.
All right, thank you, Lawrence Lewis, for the defense. All right, Mr. Norris Lewis, call your first witness, please.
Theodore Young.
Just come forward for us, Mr. Young. And when you come around, there's a couple of steps. Watch your step coming around before you're seated, please, sir.
Raise your right hand, please, Mr. Young. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter now pending before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Can you slide your chair all the way up for me so you're right in front of those microphones?
Okay.
And they'll extend out if you need to pull them toward you.
Okay, whatever.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Young, could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Theodore Young.
Mr. Young, are you familiar with Yellow River Park?
Yes, sir.
How are you familiar with Yellow River Park?
Over there walking the trails every day, early in the morning.
Do you live near Yellow River Park?
I live about maybe 2 miles from Yellow Park.
Were you in Yellow River Park on the 28th day of July of 2021?
Yes, sir.
What were you doing there?
What?
Walking alone, or were you with someone?
I was with my wife.
Did you see anything you would call unusual or out of the ordinary on that morning?
Yes. We started walking on the trail and I seen a body underneath of a tree, and I thought maybe the person was sleeping, and went over there and examined. I didn't touch the body, but I said, "Are you okay?" And no movement. And then I backed off and called Gwinnett County Police.
And was that your last involvement with calling the police? Was that the last thing you did?
Well, the police come, they took my name and said that's it, and I just left from there.
And you're certain that you did not touch the body or anything around it?
Did not touch it.
Thank you, sir. That's all the questions I have.
The other Mr. Lewis, Mr. Lawrence Lewis, may have some questions for you, sir.
Let me say that, Judge. I think Port, the other white beat. Mr. Young, good afternoon. Good afternoon. I only have a few questions for you.
Okay.
All right. If you don't understand anything I ask you, you just let me know, and then I'll try to rephrase it. Okay.
Okay.
If you don't hear the question, just ask me to repeat it, and I'll make sure. Is it better when I speak directly into the microphone? Is that better?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Good. Let me ask you this, sir. Do you recall about what time it was that you phoned the police?
About 6:20 in the morning.
About 6:20 in the morning. And you were there for approximately how long before the police arrived?
Maybe less than 15 minutes.
Okay, good. From the point where you called the police to the point where the police arrived, did you ever go closer to the body? From the point, understand my question, from the point where you called the police, where you called 911, to the point when they arrived, did you ever approach the body?
After I made the phone call, no.
Okay, good. Before you made the phone call, how close did you get to the body that was there under the tree? It was under a tree, right?
Right.
Right. How close did you get?
Probably about 3 feet.
About 3 feet. Okay, good. So fair to say you never touched the body. Is that fair to say? Never
Yes.
touched it. Do you recall ever seeing any shell casings?
You what?
Any shell casings? The
No.
part that's discharged from a gun.
No.
Do you recall ever hearing any metallic sound as you were moving, as if you might have like kicked or touched a shell casing?
No.
Okay. Just based on your testimony, I'm left with the impression that it was you that got closest to the body between you and your wife. She sort of hung back and you were the one that came within 3 feet. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. And after the police arrived, approximately how long were you there before you left?
How long was the police there before?
No, yeah. How long? That's even a better question. How long were the police there after they arrived before you left?
As soon as they took the information from me, my name and address, I left.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Judge.
Any redirect examination from the state?
No,
All right, and then Mr. Young, watch your step coming down, and you're excused. Is he excused from any further appearance?
no objection to the stay, Your Honor.
None, Judge.
All right, you are free to go about your business, sir. No further obligation to appear. Thank you. Call your next witness.
Teresa Lang.
You are watching the trial of Tory Lane, 18-year-old girl found unalive in Yellow River Park. I think it happened last year. And Austin is her boyfriend who was with her at the time.
Watch your step coming around for me, please. And if you will get seated comfortably in the chair and position yourself in front of the microphone.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter now pending before the court to be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, help you God?
Yes.
Put your hand down. Please introduce yourself to the jury.
My name is Teresa Lang.
All right, and Ms. Lang, let me have you just extend those microphones so that they're right in front of you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Who was Tory Lang to you?
Tory Lang is my daughter, my only child.
Did something happen with Tory in July of 2021?
Yes.
When was the last time you saw Tory?
The last time I saw Tory was July 27, 21.
Do you remember what time it was?
Roughly around 3:30 p.m.
Did Tory have a car?
Yes.
What kind of car was it?
It was a Nissan Versa, blue.
Did she leave in the car as far as you know?
Yes, she did.
Did she have her cell phone with her?
No.
Why didn't she have her cell phone?
She didn't have her cell phone because I was switching over services from Verizon to Comcast and Xfinity. And I was switching the service over 4 of our lines.
Are all the jurors able to hear? If someone's not able to hear, raise your hand. Okay. All right, if you could just keep your voice up just a little for us. All right, thank you.
Did Tory return home from the last time that you saw her?
No.
when did you start becoming concerned that something had happened to Tory?
I became concerned on July 27th, the same day, because she didn't return home that night. But curfew time around 11:30 p.m.
Did you start looking for her then?
Actually, I started looking for her before then, but I continued to look for her throughout the night. I was out. When I returned home, I went back out looking for her.
What types of places did you go looking for her?
I rode around to her best friend, was supposed to be best friend Austin Ford's home. Rode around there looking for her in that area, looking for the car. Just rode around the whole complex looking for the vehicle. And I went to her other friend's house and left on you looking for her, looking for the vehicle, and I couldn't find it.
When you went to, you said you went to Austin Ford's house?
Yes.
Is Austin Ford in the courtroom today?
Yes, he is.
Where is he?
Right there in front of me, in a purple suit.
Thank you. And you identified him at the time. He was her best friend?
Yes.
When you went to his house on the 27th, were you able to talk to him?
No.
Having not found Tory the night of the 27th, what did you do the morning of the 28th?
I continued to look for her. When I got home, I returned home around 11:30 and went out and rode around to after midnight. So around 12:30 midnight, 12:30 in the morning, going into 1 o'clock that morning, I started calling her friends from her phone because at this time her phone has ported over and mine wasn't ported over. So I was calling people from her cell phone.
Like you said, you had a cell.
Who are some of the people you called?
The first person I called was Austin Ford.
Did you talk to him?
I didn't talk to him when I first called. He called me back.
About what time did he call you back?
I want to say around 1 or 1:30 a.m. going to Wednesday morning.
So we're now into the 28th of July.
Correct.
What did he tell you at 1 in the morning on the 28th of July?
Well, this is his exact words. When he called back, answered the phone, said hello. It was like this Tory. Like he was talking to someone in the background, like he was shocked to hear Tory calling the phone. Then I asked him, where's Tory? He said, I haven't seen Tory. I said, you sure you haven't seen Tory? Because she's missing, we haven't seen her, since she left the home earlier. He said, no, you haven't seen her.
And this was, again, about 1 in the morning on the 28th.
Around 1:30.
I'm going to show you what's marked in State's Exhibit 22. What are State's Exhibits 1 and 2?
Tory?
Our State's Exhibits 1 and 2 photographs of Tory Lang before her death.
Yes.
Are they true and accurate depictions of Tory Lang?
Yes.
You understand the tender State's Exhibits 1 and 2?
All right, states 1 and 2 are each admitted without objection.
You are to intend to publish.
Yes, sir. Do you need the picture? All right, let me turn on the television one moment.
Display publishing State's Exhibit number 1. Tell the jury about this photo.
It was a graduation photo shoot we did for her. Since, unfortunately, she wasn't able to have a traditional graduation because of COVID-19. And so we had to reinvent, get creative, with the graduation. So we took her out on a photo shoot by the lake.
How old was she in this picture?